there is something that puzzles me in this still, which is the question of how, if I am everything, do I keep perceiving everything through this one body, feeling so strongly whatever happens in this one body, and not in outside of it?
Because it's only possible to perceive the world from a single point of view. So you can only see your experience through your experience of the world through your body mind. Infinite being sees, the same infinite being sees through all body minds, but each body mind is restricted to its own experience. You can't experience what I'm thinking or what I'm perceiving, because the same infinite being is seeing through both of our eyes. But what we see is limited to the body mind through which we perceive it, through which we see it. Well, that's why you can't see what I'm seeing, because your perception is limited to your body. But it is the same infinite consciousness that is seeing through all of our eyes. Now, the fact that your experience is limited and private, or at least your internal experience is private, doesn't mean, and limited, doesn't mean that which knows or perceives is itself limited or private. Your thoughts and feelings are private, but the knowing with which you know those thoughts and feelings is not itself private or limited to you. The thoughts and feelings are limited to you, but not the knowing with which you know them. That is shared.
So up until yesterday, I had a pretty set, fixed view of reality. I'll use that word. That there was this reality, and then there was my perception of it. And then you said something yesterday, part of it was in the meditation, and part of it was in something you said, that really just cracked that wide open in a very beautiful way. And specifically, it was that it's 50% perception and 50% creation. So I'm really, because before that for me it was just all perception. There's whatever it is out there, and then there's my perception of it, my view of it, and that's different for each of us. But just the notion that there's some creation or rendering of reality taking place from this individual point of view is, it's beautiful, and it's, I don't know, it just shakes something in me in a really wonderful way, opens things, probably a better word. And I'm wondering if you could speak more to that, to what is it in us, or what is that rendering, if that word makes sense to you.
Well, the rendering, Rick, is our faculties of sense perception: seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. So those are the faculties through which we, awareness, look out and perceive reality as a universe. The reality is there prior to its being perceived, but it derives its appearance from the faculties through which it is perceived. So, hence the analogy I often use. If we look at white snow through orange-tinted glasses, we'll see orange snow. The white snow precedes its being viewed through orange-tinted glasses, but it derives the orange color from the glasses through which we perceive it. So the orange snow is a conjunction, it's a relationship between the one reality and the finite mind, and it is the relationship between these two that renders the one reality, the one infinite reality, a finite world.
So that makes perfect sense. And this may not even be a question that makes sense, but is there then an actual reality other than the perception of it? Because other than the seeing of it or the receiving of it, does
Rick,
it exist?
if there was only perception, not perception of reality, but just perception, then that's a slippery slope to solipsism. Because what you would be saying then is, because all of us appear to your perception, so what you would be saying to all of us is, you are just a rendering, you are just how my perception appears. You just appear in my mind, in other words. So, and what I'm not suggesting is that the world appears in each of our finite minds. I'm definitely not saying that. That would be solipsism. In fact, if we thought that the world appeared in our finite mind, we wouldn't be acknowledging all the other finite minds. If I thought all there is my mind, my perceptions, then I would just consider you all appearances in my mind, but without any internal experience of your own. That's solipsism. No, I'm suggesting that reality exists outside the finite mind, but inside consciousness. And the finite mind looks at it and renders it the physical world.
That's very clear. Thank you.
It's that beautiful thing that Ian McGilchrist said in his latest book, relationship precedes relata. Relata means related things. So we normally think there are things out there, and then those things are related to one another. And what he's suggesting is, no, it's the other way around. It's relationship. The relationship between the subject and the object that creates the appearance of related things. It's relationship that brings the world into apparent existence. I say apparent existence because the world doesn't exist in and of itself. It is an appearance of the one reality. That one reality does not exist. It is.
Hi, Rupert. Thank you.
Hi.
Zach. I wanted to hash something out about the concept of the unknown, which during this retreat I feel as though, in my experience, has kind of been debunked, because in our true nature we can say it's unknown semantically by the mind. The mind doesn't know it, it knows mind, but the experience of it can't be called unknown.
Exactly.
And then when true nature is infusing itself with our perceptions, and we are seeing that physical reality is no longer veiling God, is doing the opposite, revealing God or presenting God, that's not unknown. That is the furthest thing from unknown.
Absolutely, yes.
So one morning I was considering what may be left to be unknown, because there may be facets of reality that we don't yet know, which is circumstantially unknown, but could become known, and then it wouldn't be unknown anymore. Is there something to be said about the unknown anymore in this understanding that isn't just circumstantial?
No, you're on the right track, Zach. The idea that reality is unknown belongs to a lesser stage of understanding than we tend to discuss here. Because the idea that reality is a mystery or unknown is a concession to the mind that believes that the things that it does know are real. The objects, the people, the world. If we think that objects are objects, if we think that things are things, if we think that people are people, then their reality cannot be known by the mind that thinks that objects are objects and people are people. So in reference to that belief, the reality of the material world it is legitimate to say that reality is a mystery or unknown. But it's a concession, at best, to the belief that the things that we know are real. Now, at this stage of the level of understanding at which we speak almost all the time, we don't credit objects and people and the world with an existence of their own. We see them all as an appearance of the one reality. To suggest that something other than that one reality is known, and therefore that the one reality cannot be known, is blasphemy. It's to suggest that there are two things. One, things that we know, and two, reality that we don't know. That's blasphemy. So here we don't credit things with an existence of their own. We see things an appearance of the one reality. So from this point of view, reality is all that is ever known. It's things that are unknown. It's not that we know things and that reality is unknown. It is that we know reality. It's the only thing there to be known. And the things that we used to think that we know have never been found. They never even came into existence, either to be known or not to be known. It says this beautiful line in the Bhagavad Gita, that which is known, this is my translation of it, that which is known by the mind is never known by consciousness, and that which is known by consciousness is never known by the mind. So that which is known by the mind, that is objects, can never be known by consciousness. The infinite consciousness cannot know a finite object. The infinite can only know the infinite. So that which is known, or rather that which seems to be known for the mind, 10,000 things, is never known by consciousness. But that which is known by consciousness itself, the one infinite reality alone, can never be known by the mind. So the understanding that things are known and reality is never known is the point of view of the mind. From the point of view of the mind, it's true, reality cannot be known by the mind. But here we tend to say all that is known is reality. In other words, we take the point of view of consciousness. So you're right. The unknown, you see, from the point of view of the mind, objects are real, and this reality that can never be known is somehow sort of abstract and metaphysical, and we just presume it's there, but we can't know it. In reality, it's the other way around. All that is known is reality, and the objects that the mind seems to know, they are abstract. Nobody has ever found an object. So it's matter. Objects made out of material things, that's abstract and metaphysical. Those things are never found. The things that the mind thinks that it knows are actually never found. All that is ever known is reality, infinite consciousness, and it is consciousness that knows that. So that's a long-winded way of saying you're on the right track, Zach, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So in the practice this morning, in the meditation, you spoke about the attention being a going out. And that's well known, that feeling of the attention going out to an object like a thought, which is most of the time for me, and filling it, making it its own, creating it. So your instruction was to let that go. And when that was done, then the experience was of a still presence, stillness, unbounded, joyful, bright, but there was still the sound of the dog barking,
Yes.
the sound of birds, the sound of a motorcycle, And in this still impersonal space, there was knowing of those sounds.
Yes.
But then your instruction again was to rest in the heart of awareness. And when that instruction was followed and all control was let go of, there was a sinking down into a place where there were no more perceptions. There was just the I had taken itself
Yes.
into its own being.
Yes.
And then if someone coughed or something would rise again, and then there would be presence in this impersonal space of awareness again, where there was knowing. I have a question. The first experience, which is the normal experience of there being attention going out, is that seeing the world through the gates of perception? And then the other question would be the other experience, the impersonal experience of perceiving and knowing. Is that still seeing through the gates of perception?
So the answer to both questions is yes.
Okay.
Yes, the only way it is possible to experience the world or to attend to the world is through perception.
So there's personal perception and impersonal perception?
All perception is impersonal, but impersonal perception is sometimes accompanied by the thought, I perceive. So that thought appropriates what is in fact impersonal and attributes it to an imaginary self. But all perception is impersonal simply by virtue of the fact that there is never a separate person either having or not having perception. There is just perception. There is no separate perceiver.
So the distinction...
Let me just, I just want to make that clear to you. Let's use Mary and Jane. Jane doesn't perceive the streets of Oxford. Mary perceives the streets of Oxford through Jane's perceiving faculties. But there is no separate perceiver in Jane. It's true that Mary cannot see the streets of Oxford directly when she's asleep in Birmingham. In order to do so, she has to go via Jane. She's got to, as it were, she's got to locate herself as Jane and look out through Jane's eyes and then see the streets of Oxford. But there's no separate perceiver in Jane. Jane says, I, Jane, perceive the streets of Oxford. But if she looks for that I, like we did a few minutes ago, Jane never finds that I, the separate perceiver. If Jane looks for that I, she traces her way back to Mary's mind. So now, infinite consciousness is seeing the world through each of our eyes. So it's the one infinite consciousness that is seeing the world through our perceiving faculties. But there's no separate perceiver inside each of us. There's no separate I, the letter I, looking out through our eyes, E-Y-E.
So the difference in the feeling of going out and grabbing a perception and having a perception enter into the stillness without any effort.
Yes, in that case, there was the stillness which you described very nicely, this still presence. You described it beautifully. And there can still be sensations or perceptions that arise in that, but there's no belief or feeling of being a separate individual perceiver, that there are just perceptions, sounds arising in that stillness. It's still, in order to hear those sounds, those sounds are still heard through your perceiving faculties. They still require your mind for there to be sounds. But your mind doesn't then generate the thought, I am hearing. I, the person, am hearing.
The only other thing that occurred that is not really a question, it's just sort of a report back, is that after that happened, I found myself very, very drawn to be interested in that threshold that is crossed when awareness comes out of being with no objects to then suddenly there being the world. And when I let the mind contemplate that threshold, there's something there. It opened up a floodgate of emotion.
That's beautiful, yes.
But I don't know what that is, but I will continue to explore.
Keep going there. That's beautiful. Yes. I don't want to interpret it because you should go there for yourself. And you don't need my interpretation. Just keep exploring that threshold.